After dating for 5 years, my fiancé told me he wasn't sure about marrying me. Then he joked in front of his friends, "If you were prettier, I'd marry you." This morning, his mom called me in tears. Dominic and I had a cozy start. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party. Bonding over our dislike for IPAs and love for 90s cartoons, we soon became inseparable. We dated for a year, moved in together after 2, adopted our cute cat Beans in the 3rd year, and got engaged last summer. His proposal was simple yet sweet, a hike to our favorite lookout point on a Saturday morning, where he nervously fished out the ring box. I said yes right away. We set the wedding for this October, and I took charge of the planning while he just went along with it. About 3 months ago, things started getting off. When we talked about wedding plans, Dominic made odd remarks. He'd hesitate when I showed him potential venues, saying things like, "That's a fortune for just one day," or "Do we really need to invite so many people?" I shrugged it off as typical guy thoughts about money. Then, he started taking ages to reply to my wedding-related texts. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd just say he was swamped at work, which seemed reasonable since his construction company had big projects. Last month, he started hanging out more with his workmate Paul. They'd go for beers after work or watch games at Paul's place. When he came home, he was distant, glued to his phone, and less affectionate. I shared my worries with my best friend Lena. She thought it might be pre-wedding jitters and suggested a date night. So, last Friday, I put on a nice dress I hadn't worn for a while, bought Dominic's favorite beer, and made reservations at a new Italian restaurant downtown. But the date was a total flop. He was distracted throughout dinner. When I brought up finalizing our honeymoon plans, he dropped a bombshell. He wasn't sure if he was ready for the wedding or marriage. I was shocked. 5 years together and 8 months engaged, and now he was having second thoughts. When I pressed him, he mentioned Paul's stories about how marriage ruins everything and his brother's messy divorce. I tried not to make a scene in the restaurant, but I felt like my world was crashing down. We barely touched our food. The ride home was silent and tense. At our apartment, he said he needed time to think and slept on the couch. The next morning was awkward. He said he was meeting Paul and some friends to watch a game at a sports bar. I was too heartbroken to argue. Lena called later and convinced me to go out for coffee. I poured my heart out to her, and she said Dominic might just be going through normal pre-wedding anxiety. After that, we wandered around Target aimlessly, and I bought some random things to ease my stress. By evening, I felt calmer and decided to go home. Just as I pulled into our apartment complex, I got a text from Kyla, one of Dominic's colleagues. He asked if I was okay and said something strange happened at the bar. I called him instead of texting back. At first, he was reluctant to talk, but after some pushing, he spilled the beans. The guys were teasing Dominic about wedding planning. When Paul asked if he was ready to be with one woman forever, Dominic said he had doubts about the wedding timing. And when Paul asked what was holding him back, the drunk Dominic joked, "If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you." Kyla said they called Dominic out, but he got defensive. I sat in my car crying for 20 minutes. How could the man I loved for 5 years publicly humiliate me like this? When I went inside, Dominic was passed out on the couch, and the apartment reeked of stale beer. I took Beans into the bedroom and locked the door. The next morning, the smell of coffee and bacon woke me up. It was Dominic's usual way of apologizing. He looked hungover and sheepish. When I confronted him about what Kyla told me, he tried to downplay it, saying he was drunk and stupid. He claimed the guys were teasing him about being tied down, so he said something dumb to shut them up. But his excuse only made me angrier. We argued, and he tried to explain he was stressed about wedding costs, but I couldn't get over the fact that he used my appearance as a joke. I couldn't stand being in the apartment with him, so I grabbed my purse and went to my brother Elliot's place. Elliot was furious when I told him what happened. He wanted to confront Dominic right away, but I calmed him down, saying I just needed some space. Dominic kept texting me all day, apologizing and asking me to come home and talk. I only replied once, saying I needed time. On Monday, I was in no mood to work, so I called in sick. Around 9 a.m., Dominic's mom, Valerie, called. We'd always gotten along well. She sounded upset and said Dominic had called her the night before and there was something important I needed to know. She asked if we could meet. Now, I'm sitting in my car outside a coffee shop, 15 minutes away from meeting her, wondering what else could go wrong and if my 5-year relationship is really over. After posting about my situation online, I got an outpouring of support. I took another sick day and spent the morning in Elliot's spare room, reading the comments. Lena came over at noon with sandwiches. She reminded me that I couldn't avoid Dominic forever since we lived together and had joint accounts. That evening after she left, I took a shower, borrowed one of Elliot's shirts, and drove back to our apartment. I was determined to stay calm and get some answers. When I got there, Dominic's truck was in the parking lot. He should have been at work. I opened the door and saw him on the couch, surrounded by our wedding planning binders. He looked like he hadn't slept. Beans was curled up next to him. He was surprised and relieved to see me. He said he took personal time off to figure out what went wrong. I stood by the door and told him looking at those binders wouldn't fix things. Our conversation was long and tough. He apologized again for the bar comment, saying it was unforgivable and he didn't mean it. When I asked why he said it, he said he was trying to look cool in front of his friends, which made me even angrier. I brought up his doubts about the wedding during dinner before the bar incident. He admitted that work stress, Paul's marriage horror stories, and wedding budget worries had been weighing on him. But instead of talking to me, he bottled it all up. Then, he revealed he was afraid of turning into his father, who left when he was 12 after an affair. He worried he might have a genetic tendency to cheat or abandon his family. I told him he wasn't his father, but he said he couldn't promise forever after seeing his parents' marriage fall apart. He also admitted he'd been talking to Kyla about his fears. As our conversation went on, he said he was scared, overwhelmed, and uncertain about marriage. He loved me, but he kept thinking about his parents' relationship and was afraid we'd end up the same. I asked why he didn't tell me earlier, and he said he was afraid I'd think he didn't love me enough. It was ironic that his hiding had caused the exact situation he wanted to avoid. I asked if his joke about my appearance was because he really thought I was unattractive. He said he'd been attracted to me since we first met and remembered what I was wearing. He claimed it was just insecurity and a stupid attempt to look in control in front of his friends. I asked if his doubts were about marriage in general or about marrying me specifically. He hesitated, then admitted that while his fears were mainly about marriage and commitment, part of him wondered if we were right for each other long term. This hurt more than the appearance joke. I told him I needed time away to process everything. He pleaded for us to work it out together, offering therapy, but I was firm about needing space. Just as I was about to pack more clothes, I noticed I had 3 missed calls from Valerie. I'd completely forgotten our planned coffee meeting. When I told Dominic, his face fell. He asked what she wanted, and I explained. His reaction made me suspicious. He was evasive when I asked what he told her. He said it wasn't his place to explain, and I should hear it from her directly. I called Valerie back, and she was concerned I didn't show up. She said she had something important to tell me and wanted to meet right away. Her voice sounded strained. After arranging to meet in 30 minutes, I confronted Dominic again. He finally admitted there was something he should have told me and suggested I talk to his mom. I quickly packed some things. Dominic said he loved me, but I replied that sometimes love isn't enough. On my way to meet Valerie, Karina, Dominic's sister, called. She was worried about what was going on between Dominic and me. She mentioned hearing from Paul about the bar incident and that Dominic wasn't answering her texts. When I said I was going to meet Valerie, she seemed surprised and asked if it was about Maria. I was shocked. Who was Maria? Karina realized she'd said too much, apologized, and told me to hear Valerie out. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Valerie was already there. Her eyes were red and puffy. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. It said, "Please remember I love you. I'm just scared and made mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me." I took a deep breath and sat down across from her. On my way to meet Valerie, Karina, Dominic's sister, called. She was worried about what was going on between Dominic and me. She mentioned hearing from Paul about the bar incident and that Dominic wasn't answering her texts. When I said I was going to meet Valerie, she seemed surprised and asked if it was about Maria. I was shocked. Who was Maria? Karina realized she'd said too much, apologized, and told me to hear Valerie out. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Valerie was already there. Her eyes were red and puffy. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. It said, "Please remember I love you. I'm just scared and made mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me." I took a deep breath and sat down across from her. Second update. After meeting with Valerie, I couldn't face going back to Elliot's or our apartment, so I went to Lena's place. Her pull-out couch was more comfortable than Elliot's storage room futon, and her cat Pepper didn't judge me when I cried. Valerie told me that Dominic had developed feelings for Maria, a new project coordinator at his company. He'd been acting differently since she joined around New Year's. I met Maria briefly at the company party in March, and that's when Dominic started acting distant. Valerie said she didn't want to see me get hurt like she did when Dominic's father had an affair. She shared her own painful experience of trying to save her marriage. After our talk, I called Lena and told her I needed a place to stay. I also texted Dominic. "I know about Maria. Don't contact me until you're ready to tell the whole truth." Then I blocked his number. On the way to Lena's, Karina called again. She confirmed what Valerie said and added that she'd overheard Dominic and Paul discussing the situation. She'd confronted Dominic and made him promise to be honest with me, but he didn't keep his word. Surprisingly, Karina was firmly on my side. That night at Lena's, we ate Thai food and watched a baking competition, but I was lost in thought. Later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Maria. She wanted to meet and said there was more to the story. I was curious, so I agreed. The meeting with Maria was unexpected. We met at a small breakfast place near the park. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup. She showed me their text history, which was mostly work-related, and told me she had no idea Dominic had feelings for her until Paul mentioned it. She also said Paul had been stirring things up, encouraging Dominic to explore other options and saying she understood Dominic better than I did. I left the meeting feeling calmer, realizing it wasn't all Maria's fault. I texted Karina to arrange a family meeting. At the family meeting in Karina's apartment, it was initially awkward. Paul tried to defend himself, but Karina shut him down. Dominic admitted that Maria was just being friendly, but he'd let his fears get the better of him. When I brought up the bar joke, he looked ashamed. I finally said I didn't think the wedding was going to happen. Dominic protested, but I cut him off. I told them I deserved someone who was sure about me. The conversation went on for hours, filled with tears and difficult truths. In the end, we all knew the wedding was off. Karina drove me back to Lena's, assuring me my relationship with her and Valerie wouldn't change. Back at Lena's, I made a list of things to do. Cancel the venue, return the ring, contact guests. It was a painful reminder of the future that was no longer going to be. The next day, I called the venue. They kept the deposit, but the florist refunded half of our payment. Dominic texted me to discuss practical matters like the apartment lease. I'm meeting him at a coffee shop tomorrow. I'm still processing everything, but I'm starting to accept that my life is changing. Karina and Valerie have been supportive, and Lena and Elliot are always there for me. I'm taking it one day at a time. Last update. It's been 3 months since the family meeting. I've moved into a new, smaller apartment. The rental market was tough, and I'm on a tighter budget, but I have a little balcony where my mint is growing well. Dominic moved out of our old apartment quickly. The wedding vendors were mostly understanding. I still haven't decided what to do with the engagement ring. Social media was a hassle, but I've moved on. Dominic and I have only talked about practical things since the breakup. He's still with Paul, but Karina said they had a falling out. He's seeing a therapist now. I'm glad he's trying to work on himself. I've started therapy too, to find myself again after compromising so much in the relationship. I'm learning to be alone and enjoy my own company. Lena suggested I go on the solo honeymoon we'd planned. At first, I was scared, but now I'm looking forward to it. I'm packing my bags and getting ready for this new adventure.